So in the studio today, we've got the Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed. Now, I've always been a Deathadder fan, and we've had a lot of their products on the channel over the years, and the Hyperspeed are usually their entry range. Now, in all the Hyperspeed models we've had in the past have had a battery inside the mouse, but finally they've actually made this a rechargeable Hyperspeed. So this could be quite interesting. So we're going to unbox it and we're going to test it out. Open the box, let's see what's inside. So opening the box, it opens up nicely to reveal the mouse itself. This is only available in black at the moment. Feels incredibly light. We also get the actual little wireless dongle and the little block so that you can put this in range on your desk. This has always been quite handy. Now, if you've got a laptop, you can just plug this straight into your laptop. But if you're using it on a desktop, it's very useful to plug the actual dongle into this metal block, position it on your desk, and then in here, no doubt, we'll have a cable. So we've got a USB-A to USB-C, so you can plug this into your desktop and then this into the back of this little metal case. And when you want to charge the mouse, you just pop this off, pop it straight into your mouse to charge it up. So it is quite a handy feature, and I do use that a lot on my desk. Right, nothing else in there. Got our manual, the usual sort of black manual with the silver writing, which is quite nice, and obviously our Razer stickers, very important. Let's pop that to one side and take a look at the mouse. Now, sadly, you don't get the side grip stickers that you do get with the V3 Pro version, which is a lot more expensive, but their Hyperspeed has always been the entry level, usually quite no frills, but the fact that they made this rechargeable this year is a nice feature. So it is a very glossy plastic, doesn't quite feel like the white V3 Pro, which has got more sort of chalky feel. But it fits nicely in your hand as you'd expect with a Deathadder. Now we've got the left and right clickers with the Razer optical switches. These feel fantastic and they're apparently rated for 90 million clicks. I've been using Deathadders for years and mine have always been rock solid. None of them have actually broken, which is nice. Now we've got the mouse wheel itself with the usual sort of ratcheted feel. Nice and easy to press. Pressing down in the middle is nice and easy, very responsive. Not too hard to press, which is handy. But there is no left or right click with the Deathadder series. And there's also no lighting on this one, apart from the little LED on the front to show you when it's on. So this is really, obviously to keep the weight down, they've stripped out a lot of the features from the old series. Now on the left-hand side, we've got the usual larger front and back buttons, which feel great, protrude just enough that they're not going to get in the way, but they're very easy to click. Something I've always liked with the Deathadder, I've always loved having those sort of large side buttons. I do use those a lot. It isn't ambidextrous on the other side. You can see there's nothing. It does fit nicely in your hand as a right-handed user. So underneath we've got the front and back PHFE feet and then another bit of PHFE around the actual laser. And they've used the 26K focus laser in here, so not quite as good as the 30K focus on the V3 Pro model. We've also got the actual button itself that turns the mouse on and off and can actually right-click through the profiles. So if you hold it down, you'll notice then that the little light comes on here ready to actually synchronize with my dongle, which isn't plugged in yet. You have to hold it down again to turn it off. Now I did prefer the actual sort of switch rather than a button. It's much easier to just flick it on and off, but I have got used to using this. And because the battery life is impressive on these mice, I very often now just don't bother actually turning them off and just plug them into charge every now and again. And Razer have claimed that there's 100 hours of battery life if you're using the 1000 Hertz polling rate with this Hyperspeed dongle, but you can also upgrade this mouse to the 8K dongle that they also sell. Personally, I don't feel the need. 1000 is fine for me because that 8K also does kill battery life by quite a large margin. Now, the thing I love about these Razer Hyperspeed dongles is you can actually connect more than one Razer peripheral to one of these dongles. So if you've got a Razer Hyperspeed keyboard and a headset and a mouse, you can connect them all to this one dongle through the Razer Synapse software. And it also does mean if you lose one of these dongles, the mouse isn't useless. We can now then just connect this mouse to one of our other Razer dongles if you have more than one Razer peripheral. So if we just quickly put it up against the actual Razer V3 Pro, now I've got the white model here, you will notice the Hyperspeed is slightly smaller. They've got very similar shapes, very similar heights. The actual Pro is very slightly higher and it's very slightly longer. But for most people, I think this is a really comfortable shape. Not that this was too big, but this one does seem to fit in a sort of medium-sized palm very nicely. So unless you've got large hands, I think this is going to be probably a better size for a lot of people than the V3 Pro. And the V3 Pro comes in at 63 grams, which is already light, but the new V3 Hyperspeed comes in at a mere 55 grams, and you can feel the difference when you pick them up. This is such a light mouse, but still does feel very solid. There's no creak in it when I'm using it, so you can really fling this around using it for your esports titles. Okay, with the unboxing and first impressions out of the way, let's get this plugged in, installed into Synapse and start testing it. So I've just plugged the mouse dongle just in the front of the case for the moment because I've already got my ordinary Deathadder V3 Pro plugged in, which I've been using. If you haven't got a Razer mouse or peripheral installed on your system, it will automatically pop up telling you that you need Razer Synapse. It will download, and once you're in, it will show all of your Razer peripherals or laptops in the actual Synapse itself. So as you can see, here's my new Razer Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed, and there's my previous V3 Pro, which is beside me. One thing I do love is that an overview of all your peripherals, anything that is rechargeable, you'll get an actual battery percentage. So you can see I've got 50% left on this V3 Hyperspeed. Now, if I click on the mouse, it takes me to the more in-depth menu. Now, first things first, you can customize all of the buttons. So you can just click a button and you can give it a new function. Now, because we don't have a lot of extra buttons with this, I may just rebind the side buttons within a game if I want them set to a particular action. Now, we do also have underneath, as I say, the DPI switch, which we'll have a look at in a second. And another thing that you get with the actual Razer is the Hypershift. By binding a key to Hypershift, it gives all the other functions a secondary function. So you could bind, say, your back button there to Hyperspeed, and then by holding that down, it would literally give you this Hyperspeed function, and everything then gets a secondary function. So if you're playing an MMO or something that needs a lot of different functions from your mouse, that can be a really handy option to have. I'm basically a first-person shooter player, so I don't need that at all. You can also create different profiles here for your mouse and then save them and save some of them to your mice. And at the bottom here, you'll see the Hyperspeed multi-device pairing. And within here, you can actually rebind the actual mouse or keyboard or anything to a different dongle. So if you've got Hyperspeed devices, you can have them all on the same dongle if you want, as I mentioned earlier on. Now, as we move to the next tab along the top, you see we've got a performance tab. Now, out of the box, it'll give you 5 stages of DPI. Now, when I press the button on the bottom, you'll see I'll instantly move up to the next DPI stage. You'll see it'll get a little pop-up there as well. Now, by default, you see it goes from 400 to 6,400. Now, me personally, that's way too many stages for me because I'll never use that many. This little box on the right, you can change that. I like to have 3. I like a really low, if you want some really sort of low sensitivity. 800 is my default, which I normally use. And then the 1600, certainly in the games like Battlefield, if I'm moving a turret or something, you want that extra speed, I'll usually use the higher DPI. But most of the time I'm sitting in my standard 800. Over on the right here, you'll notice that I've got polling rate, 125, 500 and 1000. 1000 you're going to want if you're gaming. If you're dropping it down to 500, you can still play some lighter titles and you get better battery life. 125 is really rubbish for gaming, but okay for work. So if you want to extend the battery life of your mouse and you're only using it for sort of work use, pop it on 125, but make sure you change it back to 1000 for gaming. And as I mentioned earlier, you can buy the 8K polling dongle, and then that will give you another option here for 8K, but that will destroy the battery life of your device. Now we have a calibration tab, so you can give it tracking distance and lift. By default, it's 1mm. I've always been absolutely fine with that. I've never changed it. Then we've got the power tab. Now, because we've got a rechargeable battery, it will automatically enter sleep if it's not used for 5 minutes. Then you'll have to click a button to sort of wake it back up. You can change that from anything between 1 and 15. But I've usually found 5 minutes is quite a nice default. So when we drop down to 30% less battery or lower, you go into a lower power mode, which will extend the battery life until you charge it. I wouldn't recommend it though, especially if you're gaming, to try and keep it topped up above 30%. But you can change that if you so wish. Now we've got an advanced, which is a new thing that we've got in Synapse now, which is the dynamic sensitivity. By default, it's pretty much linear when you're moving the mouse. There's no acceleration, so you'll probably see this is grayed out. This is where I am here. You can adjust the sensitivity level, which pretty much allows you to put your own level of acceleration on here. I know some people do like acceleration. I personally don't. I like to have it as linear as possible. You can actually turn this on here and change the sensitivity or change the acceleration for your needs. I'm going to leave that off for me personally. And then you've got rotation. Get a precise horizontal movement with any kind of mouse grip style. Again, I've never really used this, but if you are using it in a strange grip, you may want to adjust that. For me personally, I turn that off. Okay, so that is synapse done. There's no RGB on this mouse, so we can't adjust any of the lighting. And we do have just that one light at the top just to show you an indicator power, and that is it. So that is our Razer Synapse overview. Now I just want to quickly compare the mice with its bigger brother, the V3 Pro. Now I have to be honest, putting them side by side with the white chalkier finish, I do prefer the feel of this one in my hand because it's less slippery. This new one does feel quite slippery, but having used it for a while, I am using it nice. There's no problems with using it. I do prefer the slightly smaller size for this mouse with my sort of medium sort of sized hands. So I'm going to give a quick go on mouseaccuracy.com. See how we get on. So there we go, no problems with tracking with this new mouse. Just to show you as well, I'll do it with the V3 Pro. It has got a slightly better sensor. I don't think you'll really notice that in day-to-day use, and it is slightly larger. So I have used this for a while, so I might be slightly more comfortable with this mouse. But again, as you can see, no problems with the tracking on either of these mice. I do love Deathadder for first-person shooters. I actually missed one there. There we go. So I think I was slightly better with the Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed, and probably because it is a better size for my hand. So overall, a fantastic mouse. It is a bit more expensive than the usual Hyperspeed range at about $100 or about £100 in the UK. But that is because we now have that rechargeable battery. That is quite a handy feature if you don't want to be fumbling around for batteries, like with the Viper V3 Hyperspeed or the Basilisk V3 Hyperspeed. And I do really love the size and shape in comparison to the bigger brother, the V3 Pro. So definitely a great Deathadder addition to the line.